Alright guys, so Saber Wars 2 is in full swing over on the NA version of the game. Honestly, I thought we had a little bit more time, but you know, since the event has gone ahead and dropped on us and I've got my Space Ishtar video already out, if you need to find out how good that servant is and you kind of want a review of her, that is already done. But now it's also time for me to put out my guide for the actual event itself. If you're still kind of feeling a little bit of burnout from like the last two lottos we've had going on, especially if you're both playing the JP and NA version of the game, you'll be really happy to find out that this event is very chill, pretty relaxing. You've got a lot to do, I suppose, with like missions and everything, but there's no real weird nodes at all. Like, I guess the worst thing is that the last free quest is Berserkers, so if you're trying to like loop it, that might be a little hard depending on who's in your box, because you know, if you don't know, Berserkers give you the least amount of NP refund back, but generally it's just going to be like a nice chill event. If you missed out on some of the CEs or you missed out on like the Mystic Code, right, that the little spacesuit that you get, you have another chance to go ahead and grab stuff like that. Just generally going to be just kind of a fun event where you can kind of just farm at your leisure and pick up some items from the shop and whatnot. Before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel. Also, every weekday I stream over on my Twitch starting at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We mostly play FGO, but yesterday I actually started a Pokemon Nuzlocke, so I'm kind of broadening my horizons, as it were. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about this event. So let's kind of go over all the little nitty-gritty stuff that you can expect from this event. First and foremost, there's the event bonus servants, and yeah, if you have Space Ishtar, you're going to cook this event. I mean, her getting a 100% special damage mod, I mean, even if you've got the girl at NP1, she's gonna trash every node in this event. Like, she's going to loop-de-loop farm everything here, just quick, fast, and in a hurry, and with no trouble at all whatsoever. But there's also kind of a little bit of a shining light if you don't have Space Ishtar. There's a lot of really good AoE buster servants that are also in the event servant category, right? People like Ishtar and Ereshkigal, for instance. If you have them and you don't have a lot of other main farming people, like let's say you don't have Scotty or you don't have Castoria, you can still try to just hit them with really hard hitting NPs and try to kind of force your way through a lot of those farming nodes. So I do like to see that. You do see that they put Okita over here, and it's like, oh, you could do some quick farming with Okita, but they still have that stun on her NP, so you have to do a little bit of, I guess, annoyances to kind of get through that. But realistically, it's like, if you're using Space Ishtar, you're kind of cooking. The event nodes aren't like super hard. I believe I have them pulled up over here. Yeah, like they're not super massive to where like if you don't have Space Ishtar, you're not going to, you know, be able to farm anything. I mean, let's see. The last one here is like, you know, 100k because they're rulers. Like, that's realistically not going to be like super tough unless maybe you just don't have like the best servants ever, right? Because it's like if you're doing quick farming and you've got like Dante's or you've got someone like Lancelot, you're going to be absolutely fine. If you're using like Berserker Musashi, you're going to be fine for arts farming. Obviously, Space Ishtar is going to be able to get it done, but even then, you can try to like play to some of the traits of Estrella, right? She's Sky. She's got like a bajillion traits down here. I mean, she's Divine. That's also very common. You could try to pick out somebody to try and get it done, right? She's Roman. If you want to try to like do buster farming, right? And you're like, my tech is that I'm going to use like Romulus in my team comp or something. And when I say buster farming, because we don't have, you know, Koya and Sky, I'm meaning like you just line up 3 servants and you just have them like fire their battery and just try to like obliterate people. You could try to get something with like, oh, what's her name, Boudica, and trying to like use her if you're really struggling. Just some ideas, I suppose, if you're like really struggling with it. But if you've got any like halfway decent like farming setup, you should be able to eat this node alive. It really shouldn't be that big of a deal. In worst case scenario, you can just come do this rider one over here and just use like any assassin, alter ego, berserker, and they'll be able to take care of it pretty easily. So I do like that. I like that the event's pretty chill. You have some very solid options from like just arts farming. If you're doing quick farming, you have someone like Lancelot over here. And if you have a weaker box, you do have really strong servants that can help you out. Also, for stuff like the challenge quest, the fact that like MHXX is available and like a 50% special damage mod, or you also have MHX, who's really solid at this point after they've literally buffed everything in her kit. Both of them can really help you out in just absolutely clapping any of the challenge quests if you really need them to kind of like get through all of that. Also, people like Benny Enman stuff are pretty good as well. Then we have kind of like the second part of the main stuff. So like you have your free quest, right, for like farming your material in the event shop over here, right? Like all your goodie stuff, like all of your materials and all that whatnot. That's standard stuff. Nobody really cares about that. You do have a mission list, right? And basically you're gonna have to like go after specific servants. Like you got to go hunt like riders or like sky attribute enemies, stuff like that, blah blah blah. As long as you're kind of like managing it, it really shouldn't be that bad. I know it's kind of annoying for some people, but you know, as long as you're just farming with some regularity, you should get most of it done passively, right? Most of it will just be done by you just normally farming the event, so that's not a huge deal. You have these extra quests that not a lot of these are super bad. Like, there were some of them that I kind of picked out where I was like, oh yeah, like some of the enemies are just kind of big, and that can kind of maybe be a struggle if your account's not super great. You might struggle with some of these bigger enemies, but even then, I can't see you struggling with it if you could just bring, you know, one of your friends that has like an insane like rate up, right? Like even for like this one in particular right here, like, oh, you're struggling with this big Saber, just bring a friend Ishtar, right? And she'll absolutely crush it. Like Ishtar could take care of that by herself, even though she's an AoE, because that 30% special damage mod is going to carry her pretty far. Stuff like this could have been really annoying. Like I remember this one, they just stack a lot of burn damage and it can get really irksome to do, but realistically, most of these quests are just kind of annoying. The only thing that's really going to give a lot of people trouble, I think, is going to be the challenge quest over here, because you have a really huge MHX. I believe this is MHXX, right? Hold on, let me double check. Yeah, it is MHXX. Okay, I'm right. But I remember this one being like really difficult because like she could just be really big, and you know sometimes you might have the sustain to actually take her out. Although I found this one to be a bit more annoying because you just have like 5 people that are all doing different things, and they're all pretty chunky. But if you're taking advantage of like the special damage mod that the event is giving you, you should be able to kind of get through it pretty easily, and it really shouldn't be that big of a deal after a couple of trial and errors, so shouldn't be that bad. Let's talk about some of the CEs and stuff you can get from the event. Now, this is the gacha 5-star CE, but I thought it was worth noting. If you're gonna go summon for Space Ishtar, this one can actually be pretty decent if you don't have anything better. I don't think it's one of the best quick CEs that you can have, but it is starting gauge. It does at least give you 10%, and it can have some synergy with your healing servants. It can be kind of nice, but I don't know. I don't think it's like super great. Just kind of thought maybe it was worth mentioning for people that are going to be going really hard on the Space Ishtar banner, and they might be able to limit break this. You might be able to get some usage out of it. But even then, I don't like these split CEs. Like I think having the 2,000 extra attack is way more valuable than having like the 2,000 extra AP or HP when those are normally split. And when it's split between attack and HP, I feel like you're kind of just getting the worst of both worlds, right? So I'm not a huge fan of that. But hey, if you don't have a better quick CE, you can make do with it. Although I believe this would probably just be better for any of your quick servants or your art servants if you're going to be using them for, you know, looping and such. This is kind of like Baby's Black Grail, right? Because it gives you a little bit of extra NP damage and a little bit of extra NP gain. It can be really nice if you don't have stuff like Black Grail and you don't have a lot of like really good CEs to pair with like your arts looping servants, because you know Castoria can get you from 0 to 100%, and with stuff like Black Grail, usually your art servants are refunding 100% of their NP. So something like this can be really good if you don't have anything better, especially if you have like lower NP servants. It can also be nice because you're getting that little bit of that extra NP gain to help you kind of get to that 100%, and that little bit of extra damage if you're again like NP1 or something. That can help you out. It can be a little bit useful. This one I don't really see a whole lot of usage for. I mean, you're getting 15% quick buster and crit damage. It's at a max attack CE, but you could level up better, even free-to-play CEs, right? Like, there's better free-to-play CEs to actually level up, so I don't really see a point in it. The Ishtar command code, I think, is actually really nutty. Just slap this on any buster card and it gets just an increased 25% crit damage. Literally just find any buster servant that you're going to be using with any regularity and slap it on him, right? You're going to use Gilgamesh, doesn't have a crit buff, bam, slap it on there. Now he's got 25% crit damage on his buster cards, right? Is Ishtar not critting hard enough for you with her crit buff? Well, slap this on there, big boy. She's going to be doing even more crit damage. Like, it's just one of those really good command codes. Unfortunately, you don't get a second copy of it. If you've already beaten the event, I believe you get like 200 mana prisms for the command codes. You could get like 200, 150 or something along those lines. So If you've already got this, unfortunately, you don't get a second one, which kind of sucks, because I would love to have another one of these because it's really good, but still, I'll take the 200 mana prisms. But if you're a newer player, definitely make sure you snag this one in particular. It's really strong. This one is also really good as well, getting the special damage mod against Sabers and threats against humanity. You could throw it on like your MHX or like your MHXX or your MHX Alter. They're all pretty good for it, but realistically, you could also throw it on your art servants as well, because keep in mind that Castoria also gives all of your art servants that threat against humanity special damage mod on our arts buff. And so you can kind of compile that onto those servants to give them even better of a niche against stuff like that when you're using Castoria. So that can be really good, or just slap it on any of your archers, because your archers are pretty much always going to be fighting Sabers anyway. So why not give them an extra little kick against them, right? So this was also really strong. The final one, the burn one, you can get some usage out of this if you have, like, say, Yang, right? Like, Yang is really good for stuff like this because it gives all of her normal cards the ability to burn people for 3 turns. Stuff like this can be, like, really useful on those type of servants. But if you don't have anybody that really benefits from the burn, it's really not going to be all that great for you. I would just save it until you manage to find a servant that you can use that can take advantage of burning the opponents, right? Finally, my man Munenori over here is getting a buff. Yeah, Munenori is pretty much like a huge burst servant. Like, he likes to do all of his damage like in one turn, like just one big turn of big damage, and they definitely are compiling more onto that by giving him a 100% crit damage buff for 1 turn. For context, that's the same crit damage buff that Merlin gives people on hero creation. It's the same crit damage buff that Scotty gives to quick cards on her quick mana burst that she gives to people. So it's definitely a lot of damage. It means that he's going to do just insane amounts of damage when you pop this skill, especially if you got, like, you know, his NP plus a bunch of, like, crit cards, like, lined up. He's going to really hit them really hard. I just don't like servants that are only really good for 1 turn, right? As fights are getting longer and longer, I feel like the age of these more burst down type servants that are just good for, like, 1 turn are slowly falling off. But again, there's always going to be missions where, like, you want to burst down the boss, you know, as fast as possible. So, like, people like him will have their usage. It'll just be, I feel, less and less as time goes on, but it'll still technically be there. But with all that being said, that's pretty much everything for the event. Again, not super insane. I think the only thing that's kind of annoying is the mission list over here that you're going to have to deal with being like, all right, you got to go defeat 10 servants with Endurance A, but again, if you're smart about it, and especially things like the wiki or I believe Game Press, even like with their guides, they will be like, okay, now you want to go farm like this one like 3 exact times, and then this one like 4 exact times to like kind of min-max your missions and everything like that. So again, as long as you're kind of like on top of it, and if you're using those resources to kind of help you not be bouncing all over the place and kind of like farming not optimally, I guess, then you can definitely get through it like really easy. And then you can reap all these rewards on the mission list, because there's some pretty good stuff in here. Like, there's some pretty good resources. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I think this is just kind of like a nice little event that we're going to have for about the next 2 weeks over on the NA version of the game. It might seem like a little lackluster because, you know, if you summon for Space Ishtar, that's kind of like the main reason that everybody's like super gassed about this event. And once you summon for Space Ishtar, it's kind of like, okay, we kind of just have like an event we've already played, you know, and it's kind of just like, it's an okay event. The story is fine. It's enjoyable. The characters are fine, you know, all that just standard stuff, but it's not anything new. And it might also hurt the fact that like JP is in the middle of Lost Belt 7, and you know, they just got Rasputin and everything, so like it's insanely hype over there, and they're going to be getting even more new servants as time is going on, right? Like especially like towards the end of January. So I know it might seem like a little bummy over here on NA, but it's just going to be kind of like a nice time to just kind of passively farm the event. Just make sure you stay on top of it. Use your like at least natural AP. You don't have to use any apples, but naturally at least farm through the event. Grab the resources you want, and then get ready for the next event that's going to be hitting NA. So yeah, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.